Bonjour mes amis, bienvenue. Hey friends, and welcome back to the Language Tutor French series. I have a super cool lesson for you today. Today we're going to talk about the past tense. You know, we've done the present tense, we've done several different verbs in previous lessons. This one is going to cover how to say things have happened in the past. We're going to do what's called passé, composé. All right? And so let's get going. Let's talk about how to do the passé composé. All right, to do the passé composé, we're going to need these two verbs. First of all, we're going to need avoir, to have, and we're going to need the verb être, to be. Now, these two verbs are going to be the verb that we use to state something is done, and then we're going to follow these two with a past participle, all right? So what I want to do is I want to start with how do we do a past participle? Okay, so let me just first tell you, what's past participle? If I say, I have eaten, okay, eaten is the past participle. She has worked, worked is the past participle. All right, so we want to first find out how do we do those verbs, those past participle verb forms. What we do is this, for ER verbs, in French, we know those are very common, ER verbs. For ER verbs, what we're going to do is take off that R and we're going to change the E at the end to an E with an accent on it. So here is the verb parler, to speak. What we would do is take off that R and we would put that accent on and it would be parler. That's all we have to do to ER verbs. Okay, now I'll get to some more past participles in just a minute, but let's use this information to jump right in. Now, to say we did something in the past, I'm going to put this example up, and that is we ate. We ate. Okay, here's how we do it. First of all, we're going to conjugate the we with the verb avoir, because we're going to say we have eaten. That's all we have to do. So we're going to conjugate we with avoir, and then we're going to take manger, that's to eat, and we're going to take the R off and put the accent on it. So this is what we're left with. Nous avons mangé. Nous avons mangé. So notice I've conjugated nous with avoir, which is nous avons, we have, and then eaten is manger, with the accent at the end. You might be saying, wait, but that's not what we said. We said we ate. We didn't say we have eaten. Right, but this is how we say that. We use the passé composé. Okay, hope that makes sense to you. Let's do another one. Let's do I ate. Okay, I ate. Conjugate avoir with je, and then make the verb past participle, and we get this. J'ai mangé. J'ai mangé. Let's try another one. They ate. They ate would be ils ont mangé. Ils ont mangé. Okay, so we're conjugating il with avoir, which is ont, and we're saying manger, past participle. All right? Now, friends, that's how we do basically the passé composé, the past tense. Okay, now, I do want to tell you that there are some verbs that are not going to use avoir. They're going to use être, to be. All right? I want to show you an example. Let's say I arrived, because arrive is one of those verbs. So I arrived. Arrived is arriver. It's almost like the English. It's an ER verb as well. I would not say j'ai. I would say je suis arrivé. Je suis arrivé. Okay, I know that doesn't sound right. You're thinking that means I am arrived. Right. But that's how you do it with some verbs in French, okay? So use avoir unless it's a particular verb that takes être. And you might be saying, well, how do I know? Well, I want to give you a handful of verbs right now that use être instead of avoir. All right, so here are the exceptions to that rule. First of all, repartir, which means restart, or it can even mean divide in some situations. Naître, which means to be born. That would use être. All right, the opposite, mourir, which would be to die. Okay, that would use être. Here's another one, descendre, which means to come down. Also, we can put an RE on there, and it's another form, redescendre, which also means to come down. Now, the verb aller in the past tense is going to use être. All right, so je suis allé, I went. All right, now, venir, to come, that's another one. Monter, to ascend. Remonter, same thing, go up or ascend. Rentrer, which means to return or come home. Partir, which means to leave. Revenir, which means to come back. Tomber, which means to fall. Retourner, which means to return. Entrer, which means to enter. Sortir, which means to exit or to go out. Apparaître, which means to appear. And one more, rester, which means to stay. Okay. Now, the biggest thing I want to tell you about these verbs, the ones I just gave you that use être, the biggest thing you can do is practice them in conversation as much as possible. If you're practicing je suis allé, I went, it's only going to sound right, and it wouldn't sound right to say j'ai allé. That wouldn't sound right to you if you're practicing it to the point that it's just solidified and it sounds right to you. Okay, that means you've internalized it. You definitely achieve internalization by practicing all the time. All right, so practice those until they sound right. Now, let's talk about how to do different past participles, because there are some exceptions to the main rule, of course, right? I always have those troublemakers. Okay, so let's look at our screen. What about verbs that end in IR? Verbs that end in IR are typically going to take the I at the end. Here's an example. Finir in the past participle form would be fini. Okay, and if you have a verb with IR, it's going to follow that pattern. Verbs that end with RE are going to usually take a U in the past participle. Here's an example. Vendre. Vendre would be vendu. Vendu. Okay, so it's going to put that U there. Now, avoir, if you were saying, I have had, okay, it would be this. Yeah. EU, that's the past participle of avoir, is okay? Now, the past participle of être would be était. Était. Now, verbs that end with IRE, those are going to typically change to simple IT. So dire, for example, to say or to tell would be dit. Dit. D-I-T. Verbs that end with E-N-I-R, like venir, okay, are typically going to take a U also. They're going to be E-N-U. So venir would be venu, okay? Now here's just an irregular one. The verb ouvrir, to open, is going to change to ouvert. Ouvert. It's going to change the E-R-T. Verbs that end with A-I-T-R-E are going to switch to U's also. So the verb connaître, to know, is going to be connu. Connu, with that U. All right, here's a good one. There are several verbs in French that have O-I-R-E, like boire. Those are going to change to U also. So boire would be bu. Bu, simple B-U. All right, Next, I just want to give you a couple of irregulars that stand on their own. Prendre would be pris. Mettre would be mis. And I'm going to give you one more. Naître would be né. I know you've probably seen né before. All right, now, mes amis, I want to tell you, start with the information I've given you in this lesson because there are some more exceptions. And once you feel comfortable with these, knowing which ones use avoir, which ones use être, I encourage you to definitely practice these as much as you can to get those past participles down, the irregular past participles. And then you want to look at some further exceptions because there are certain verbs in the past participles where the past participles suddenly have to match for a plural or singular and for gender. There are certain ones that have to do that. But right now, take what I've covered in this lesson, try to get it down, and then take the next step and do your research on those that have to match for gender, okay? All right, mes amis, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. Check out the Language Tutor French Facebook page. Join our community. I'd love to see you there. And I'll see you on the next lesson. In the meantime, though, I wish for you paix et bénédiction, peace and blessings for you and all your friends and family. Au revoir. Friends, thanks for watching the Language Tutor. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave it in the comment section below the video. And please click subscribe and the notification bell so that you'll never miss any of our language lessons.